About to jump into a little job here, but I saw a comment on the channel where someone said or asked, "What about us old and broken people? What do we do? What does God expect of us in life?" or something like that. So I have a couple of analogies to use here that you may or may not appreciate, but I'm gonna do my best. I'm squinting because the sun's in my face, and I couldn't be happier about it because it was cold and brutal this morning earlier. So yesterday my wife went to the store and I caught her before she went. And I said, "Hey, can you buy me a jug of chocolate milk?" And from time to time, it's nice to have a little treat of toxic waste just to show your body who's boss. It happens to be something that from time to time I like to drink right before a workout. And that way you get a little burst of sugar and you can enjoy something without it being so terrible for you. So the other thing is that from time to time I like to come up with things I can ask my wife to do for me, because I know that I actually enjoy, but that are accessible, because I know that she cares about me, and I'm sure I fill her life with challenges of many sorts, but one of them is that I probably am not the most accessible person to help. So, it's nice to have things to help her help me. And that's a win for both of us. Anyways, so she got me this chocolate milk. And I totally forgot about it until a minute ago. And I worked out this morning and I didn't have any chocolate milk. So that was really sad. So I was contemplating that sadness while drinking a glass of chocolate milk. So what's the point of this? Well, there's no point in chocolate milk under the conditions I've described if you don't drink it, right? What's the point of a gift if you don't see it as a gift? You might be scratching your head, your gray head, thinking, which you got something on me, right? Thinking, hey, I don't get it. What's the gift here? Boy, there are a lot of places we could go here. Where to start? Well, so I don't forget, let's talk. No, let's not go there yet. I have in my hand some nuts, some actual nuts, right? Let's show you these first. These are chestnuts. Now, I've never actually eaten a chestnut. I have no idea what this tastes like. I ate a horse chestnut once, which it turns out they're poisonous. And I was like, I don't know how anybody can find chestnuts appetizing. Now, why do I go into that? A horse chestnut and a regular chestnut look the same to an untrained eye. But one is actually poisonous. It's full of tannins, which are incredibly bitter. And so you may as well eat pine bark or something. That's kind of what it tastes, just less piney. That's what it tastes like. Okay, so what about not poisonous chestnuts? These are not your average everyday chestnuts. And no, I'm not about to sell you magical beans or anything. These are called Dunstan chestnuts. These are hybrids between the American chestnut, which got wiped out for the most part by a disease, and a Chinese chestnut, which is much more hardy. But American chestnuts have benefits over Chinese chestnuts in several aspects. One of them is not that they're disease hardy, but they're much more rigorous in cold weather, and they're much more productive. So they're hardier and more productive. I don't know if they taste better, but we don't need to know that for the purposes of this example. So to the untrained eye, a chestnut's a chestnut. But it turns out a chestnut can be poisonous, or it can be different varieties with very different characteristics. And depending on where you live, those characteristics will matter more or less. But they can really matter. This tree will be producing sooner than other varieties, and it will produce more nuts. What about these little guys? So these are actually, let me put my hand up here so you can see how tiny these are. these are actually hazelnuts. And if you've seen a hazelnut before, which I had not, I got this bag and I showed my wife and I'm like, these are a lot smaller than I thought they would be. And she said, what are those? I said, they're hazelnuts. She said, those aren't hazelnuts. They're too small to be hazelnuts. And I said, well, they're a special kind. And I said, well, let's see what they taste like. So I cracked one open and it smelled really nice and it tasted pretty good. I said, that's like a single shell peanut, but it tastes a lot better. So why do I have these hazelnuts and why are they so small? Well, this is a variety called a Manchurian hazelnut, and it was developed in the 1800s in Russia. And the funny thing about these, the unique thing about these hazelnuts is they're hardier than regular hazelnuts. I have planted something like 20 hazelnuts on my property, and we're zone 2 to 4, depending on who you ask or when, what kind of winter we get. But 2 is super brutal. 3 is not even nice. 4 is bad enough on its own. And so it's a fun game trying to see what works here. Of those 20 or 30, however many hazelnuts I've planted over the years, we have something like 4 that are alive. I have no idea if they're going to actually produce nuts or not. And I couldn't tell you what variety they are, but I know it's of 2. It's sort of irrelevant. The point is, those are standard, and the results weren't that great. And so I wanted to try something that was a lot different, and I discovered these. And they're hardy down to zone 2, if I recall, which is crazy. You could say that's nuts. But anyway, they're tiny. So if you showed someone in Virginia these little nuts, these little hazelnuts, they say, why the heck are you growing those? Grow the big ones. But the thing is that those won't work here. And so these have much greater value here because the alternative isn't available. I can't attest to this, that these actually have a much, much more pungent, in a good way, a stronger positive taste than the other ones. So that's interesting. So I'm just trying to explore my nut options here. And there you have it. So what does that have to do with being old or broken? Well, you may see yourself a certain way, but that does not mean that God sees you that way. So let me hit you with a couple of truths here. First off, this life is not the place where we receive our eternal reward. This is not the place where we receive our eternal reward. Everything that we see as an affliction is something that takes away, if we live our life properly, is actually a gateway. It gives. It provides something more. The phrase you need to remember is prospered in affliction. Prospered in affliction. It's not automatic. You have to actually live righteously. And it's not like, it's not like the full effects of this will be poured out in this life. So a good scripture story to look up again is Lazarus and the rich man. So this man, Lazarus, he was covered with sores, he was a beggar, he had nothing, and he was obviously in pain. He was obviously not regarded very well in life, and he died. And he was in heaven with Abraham. That's according to the story that Jesus told. So, in life, Lazarus may have seen all those things as terrible afflictions, but they were the vehicle for where he was in heaven. So, that's sort of where one slice of Christianity would leave off. Most slices of Christianity won't tell that story because they say that life is all puppy dogs and rainbows. The rest of the story is that there's actually an awful lot of joy and meaning that we can have right here and right now. The issue is that we try to find it in ways that are tied together with what the world regards as prosperity or happiness. And worldly joy and godly joy, they aren't the same thing. And worldly prosperity and godly prosperity, they're not the same thing. So, whether we're talking about age or capacity in any sense, or even circumstances in life, between that, we're talking about a huge slice of the human population, of humanity. And the fact is that what we ought to be looking for is not so much what the world regards as valuable, but the meaning that God provides. And how is that meaning encountered? That meaning is encountered by learning about and living His love. So, if these nuts stayed in a place where their larger alternatives were available, they wouldn't be regarded as valuable. If these nuts, these chestnuts, if there were no, I don't know what it's called, chestnut blight or something, if there were no disease, which the American chestnut was susceptible to, there'd be no real value to that hybrid. And so part of achieving the meaning that's possible in life is finding the situations where you can give a unique contribution and then making it. I was talking to an elderly gal not too long ago, and she's riddled with various afflictions. And she said, "I'm so depressed. I just wish there was something I could do. I can't work, and I can't do anything that's got a regular schedule, and I just sit here by myself all the time, and I'm so lonely. And I wonder if I've wasted my life, because this is how it's ending." And I said, "Well, you can't work for money, but you can still work." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're telling me there's not a place that you'd enjoy volunteering at?" Because she was saying she has a friend, and they were going to go clubbing at the senior center or whatever. And she's like, "But we just started talking about it, and I just can't get excited about it. I just don't know why. I'm just not interested." And I said, "There's nowhere you can volunteer? I mean, what about like an old age home? Because she went through some hard times when her mother was dying." I said, "Why don't you go and help some people there?" And she said, "Well, I couldn't deal with that because when they die, it's just so sad." And I said, "Well, can't you find some place where you can volunteer with kids?" And she's like, "Oh, well, I love babies. Yeah, I could hold babies all day long. That'd make me very happy." And I said, "I'm sure there's a place you could find that needs some people to hold some babies, or a person that needs somebody to hold some babies, even if it's not an organization." Now, maybe what I'm saying here seems like, I don't know, a mouse versus an elephant in terms of trying to conquer the limits of, the potential landslide of a life of regret, which is, worst case scenario. I'm not saying that that's everybody's position, versus some little thing and you're like, well, what difference is that going to make? You have no idea. You have no idea. I fill my schedule up pretty well. I try hard to, that's the wrong way of saying it, but I tried hard to use every moment to the maximum value. And the other day, I found myself in town, which I hardly ever go, and I was between timed appointments. And it's almost always the case that in circumstances like this, which are super rare, it's like once a year, I make sure I have a book in the car I drive so that there's never a wasted moment. And I didn't have a book. And I was so tired that my next thing was, well, just intentionally shut everything down and just sit in quiet for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever. And I actually had like 2 hours to burn. And I said, I'm so tired right now. I can't do that because I'll just fall asleep. And I said, Lord, I'm here. Use me for whatever you've got. I don't care. You tell me to tell some random person something. I'll go to the ATM. I'll get some money. You tell me what to do. I don't have any orders. Tell me what to do. If there were a set of people doing this on a regular basis because they actually didn't have anything in their schedule, I'm not trying to say that anyone in this situation doesn't have things in their schedule. I'm just saying if you have vacancies in your life for your time, talents, and efforts, imagine what God could put in there. If you really believe that He can use you, you're not going to have to look very far to find ways that He can use you. And you are going to be shocked at the things that He chains together in using you for other people. You're going to be like these little hazelnuts. And to you, it's just like, who cares about this little nut? Do you know how much money and time I've spent trying to grow hazelnuts here? And I found these didn't even cost that much. On some obscure website, I was looking for pine tree seeds, and I found hazelnuts. And the things that you see in your life as useless, without value, God sees you as these chestnuts that have exactly what it takes to uniquely help somebody with something. I promise you. I promise you. So, whatever your situation, it doesn't matter if you're not old. It doesn't matter if you're not busted up. If you're alive, God has a purpose for you. And newsflash, that purpose is not you. It's not you. It's not about you. And that's the key. That's the key. Life, in a way, it's like falling out of a really tall tree. And as time passes, you just keep hitting branches and breaking ribs, trying to hold on for your dear life. But the ground's coming whether you like it or not. But every time you hit a branch, it's an opportunity to make this place better than it was when you found it. If you're still kicking, even if you're not kicking because your legs don't work, if you're alive, you have the ability to make this world a better place. You just need to figure out how. And the good news is, we have a good Father. And He'll help you. He'll help you find that. So turn to Him. And stop complaining about what you do or do not have. And ask Him how you can give what you do have. And you have an awful lot. This lady I was talking about, I said, you're on disability. You worked your whole life, and now all of a sudden you don't have to work anymore for the rest of your life. It's taken care of. You got a place to live. You got food to eat. What I wouldn't trade. I said, I would take all of your physical afflictions times 3. I couldn't multiply it by more than that because I'd be dead. But I'd take it times 3 to have the time that you have. And she said, yeah, but what can I do? I mean, I can't walk for long periods of time. I can't do this. I got to be around. I said, you can think. You can speak. She said, well, I'm tired all the time. And I said, then sleep. Sleep when you're tired. You got nothing else to do. You can sleep anytime you want. What a blessing, right? But she got excited about the volunteer thing. I'll have to check with her to see how that's going. But don't shortchange God. You know, if life's going to disqualify you from certain opportunities, you let life do that. Don't do that to yourself. Open your mind. Open your eyes. Get on your knees and pray. And say, Lord, I'm here. Use me. Got a couple of drops left in the tank. Let's do this. This is not an attitude that has to wait until something hits you in life that you feel is limiting in some way. This is an attitude that the Lord helped me take upon myself when I was fully able-bodied. And it has continued with me through waves and waves of things that have not been as easy. But you know, you go until you can't go anymore, and then you take a break, and then you get up and you do it again. I was going to talk about the story of Simeon and Anna in the temple with the baby Jesus, but I guess I won't do that. There's still more you can do. If you're still kicking, there's still more you can do. So if you want to feel better, go do something for someone else. And the more you do for other people, the better you're going to feel. We have this all reversed, and we think that how we feel determines what we do. You get to determine what you do right now. It's fully your choice. And how you decide to act right now is exactly what's going to determine how you feel later. So if you want to feel good later, do good now. And just keep doing that, no matter what. And you'll find that over time, everything gets better. Do everything you can to make this world a better place than you found it. And you'll find massively more joy here, and you'll be way better situated hereafter.